To this meeting of the Kirkcudbright Common Goods Subcommittee. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be made available for viewing through the Council's website. Members may notice that when calling members to speak, I will refer to them formally and using their title, e.g. Councillor Smith, so that it is clear who are councillors and who are, by the process of elimination, the officers. Remote participants, please follow the good practice guidance, which includes muting microphones and switching off your video when you are not addressing the meeting, writing speak in the Teams chat function when you want to contribute. Please don't repeat contributions already made by other members. No material should be posted in the chat function if it is intended as part of the discussion. The usual standing orders apply, including that any votes will be undertaken by roll call. If any member has to leave the meeting, please either leave the Teams meeting for that period of time or write leave in the Teams chat function and then join when you rejoin the meeting so we can keep track on whether the meeting is quorate. All members should speak clearly, taking the time and speaking directly into the microphone when making contributions. When referring to reports, please provide reference to the relevant paragraph to allow everyone to follow. Please focus on contributions on areas where clarification is required or to propose an alternative to a recommendation. Item 1 on the agenda, Sedran apologies and Chair's approval of members' remote participation. Ingrid, can you provide the Sedran indicating who is participating remotely and any apologies, please?
Yes, good afternoon, Chair, and good afternoon, members. I can confirm that today we have in the room Chair Councillor Dennerley and Councillor McFarlane, joined with Community Representative Lindsay Forbes, and on Teams this afternoon we have Councillor Campbell. Thank you.
Okay. Number 2, I can confirm my agreement to the participation of members named as participating remotely. Item 2, declarations of interest. Do members have any statement of connection or declaration of interest to declare based on the definition? Statement of connection. For transparency reasons, members may wish to make a public statement. Declaration of interest, members would now require to leave the meeting for that item. Item 3, minutes of previous meeting of Wednesday 18th of September for approval. Are members happy to approve? Thank you. Councillor McFarlane. Councillor Campbell, happy to approve?
No, it's subject to clarification, Chair. A note that in the minutes, the free income as per our meeting on the 18th of September was 5,589, whereas the free income today in relation to the one application is 5,767 and 2 pence. Looking for clarification, is it a mistake in the minutes or is it an explanation for the discrepancy between 18th September and today?
Ingrid.
Yes, thank you, Chair, to yourself, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Campbell. It's just to say that the figure that is presented in the report and for financial assistance today is the figure that is up to date and based on the financial reports that we will receive this afternoon. The figure that's in the minute was based on the forecasted free income, so that's where the slight difference comes from. I hope that's helpful for members this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Campbell, okay, content with that?
Yes, I'm Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Ingrid. Minutes approved. Move on to item 4, Kirkcudbright Common Good Fund, final outturn 2023-24 and financial plan 2024-25, report by Head of Thriving Communities. Our first report provides members with the final outturn of 2023-24 and financial plan 2024-2025. I would like to welcome David Herson from Bruin Dolphin, who's here today. David, could I turn to you first to talk us through the Bruin Dolphin valuation report?
Great, thank you very much indeed. So I will just share my screen. We did see some of you quite recently in August. So I have prepared a quick update on what's been happening since then. Hold on 1 second. Okay, so just kicking off, looking at what's been happening in markets over 1 year on the left-hand side and then 10 years on the right-hand side. So you can see we last met in August, and since then it has been quite positive. The best performing market over that period since we last spoke, and indeed over the last 12 months. The green line there is the S&P 500, which is the main index in North America. And you can see there on the right-hand side of the chart, the spike up in the short term. That was the market's reaction to the re-election of Donald Trump. Very positively viewed by stock markets, and you will note that some of the other markets around the world haven't reacted so positively. I will chat about that a bit more, but there is a big impact from some of the tariffs which the new president has talked about, and the implications that they may have, particularly on parts of Europe and potentially China as well. The next best performing market over the last year, the mustardy line there, that's Asian equities, which did benefit over the month of October on account of a large stimulus package announced by the Chinese government. With the blue line is the UK market, the black line is Europe, and at the bottom we have the government bond market. So performance in the short term has once again been dominated by US equities. And if we look at the right-hand chart over 10 years, that has very much been the case over the last decade as well. US equities have performed significantly better than any other market. To a large extent, that has been driven by the large weighting in technology companies within the US index. So around a third of the US market is technology companies. To contrast that with the UK market, we are around 1% in technology. So it's these big tech names growing their earnings which have been driving the US market higher. So just to remind you how we have things set up at the moment for the common good. On our scale of 1 to 10, we manage the investments with reference to risk category 6. The investment time horizon we have in place is very long term, over 10 years. The objectives, you want to generate income to fund your activities, and you also want to protect the capital against inflation over the long term. We don't have a specific income target in place. You do take the income out monthly. There have been 1 or 2 problems with getting a new bank account set up in the short term, but I understand these discussions in the background are ongoing. You're invested directly into the UK, and we use collectives for exposure to the rest of the world. We have no formal restrictions placed upon the investments, and we don't have an investment policy statement in place at this stage. To give a bit more context to the risk profile, we offer investment management services to charities between risk category 3 and risk category 8. So you can see there where the common good fund sits, broadly in the middle, but slightly towards the upper end, which means that in broad terms, you have 2/3 of your portfolio invested in stock markets and 1/3 invested in other diversifying assets. So the valuation of the investments as at the 18th of November, £953,664. So we have seen a bit of an improvement since we last came to see you. So we are up by almost £17,000 since August, just reflecting some of that strength that I talked about over the course of the last few weeks, particularly in response to the US election. In performance terms, over the year to date, we are up by around 4.5%. The previous year, which I touched on these figures when we spoke in August, was a positive one for the Common Good Fund, up by just over 10%. And I've included there, by way of a comparison, what's called the ARC Steady Growth Comparator. So that's a comparison with other charities in the UK with similar investment objectives and attitude to risk. The income is listed there. You can see that last year the income was around £22,500. We do expect that the income will look a bit better going forward, so a little under £25,000 over the next 12 months. In yield terms, that sits at 2.6%, which is slightly better than the index. If we lend our money to the government today for 10 years, they give us 4.5% a year, give us our money back. The inflation figures have picked up a bit. They were announced this morning at a bit higher, 2.3%, with the October change in the energy price cap. And then we've got interest rates sitting at 4.75%. So in terms of the asset allocation of the investments, as a reminder, each of our risk categories comes with an associated benchmark. And we then have some flexibility to tactically position ourselves relative to that. The investments are reflective of the mandate that you've asked us to follow. We are slightly underweight in fixed interest, so we've got 16.1% invested there compared to 17% within the benchmark. UK equities, so UK stock markets, 18.3%. But the majority of the assets are invested overseas. So just over half the portfolio committed to international stock markets, and the vast majority of that is in the US. So we have got 34.1% invested directly into US markets. If you cast your eye down the page, we also have something there called global investments. So these are funds which invest on a global basis and don't fit neatly into the geographic buckets that we have there. The majority of that 4% will also be in North America. So we do have quite a meaningful overweight position in the US, which has certainly helped performance over the course of the last year or so. We've got diversification into some absolute return funds, some gold, which has done well for you recently, some infrastructure, a small amount of commercial property, and we are sitting on a little bit more cash than we might normally just because of the issues with getting the bank accounts changed over. The top 5, bottom 5 performers, this is just since the end of March. Best performing holding has been the Aberdeen Property Income Fund. This is, as the name implies, an investment trust which owns a number of properties. We have received a bid for the company, so that's somebody who's come and offered to buy all of the outstanding shares, which usually is done at a premium to the share price, and that has certainly been the case here. So we benefited from that bid coming in. I mentioned your gold has done quite nicely, so we there have the gold tracker up by almost 15%. Compass Group, the world's largest catering business, the S&P Tracker Fund up by 12%, and then the Invesco Asian Fund, which is also up quite nicely. On the right-hand side, there have been 1 or 2 issues at Croda. Croda International, if you don't know it, is a chemicals business. So they manufacture a lot of the chemicals which go into industrial processes, but they also provide a lot of the base materials which go into beauty products like shampoo or moisturizer. And they also manufactured one of the component parts of the Pfizer vaccine. During the pandemic, the shares were to some extent flattered, I think, by the boost that the sales got from the vaccines. As we've come out of the pandemic, we are in a different environment, with governments using what they've already bought rather than buying new from the company. And there have also been a few issues in the beauty industry, particularly in China, which has massively underwhelmed since the economy reopened. But we have had results from Croda in the last week or so that are starting to show signs that we are through the worst of this destocking exercise, and things are looking more positive. Diageo, there has also been a hangover, perhaps is the wrong word to use, an impact from the pandemic, people's drinking habits changing. During the pandemic, people were consuming more alcohol at home. now that we are back to normality, things have changed, and there have been one or two concerns, again, if that's the right word to use, about younger people drinking less, Generation Z drinking less than older generations. But that said, Diageo remains a very high quality business with excellent brands and distributions, and the share price is factoring in a lot of the bad news at current levels. We've then got the Tritax Big Box Fund, which is another property exposure we have. Big Box, strange name for a company. It owns distribution centres, so big boxes. And we think over the long term that type of building, that type of property should be well supported as we continue to buy more and more things online. We then have Legal & General and the Renewables Infrastructure Group. We do get very attractive incomes from these two holdings. So Legal & General has a yield of an income yield of about 8.5%, and the Renewables Infrastructure Group again has a yield of about 8%, which we can offset against those capital falls there in the short term. But just to give you a feel of what's been going on over the course of the last few months. In terms of recent transactions, I won't go into a huge amount of detail here, other than to say that the portfolio continues to be actively managed as we seek to take advantage of movements on your behalf. This is a relatively new tool for us. I think I did introduce it in August, but just to update you, we have always said to our clients that we take environmental, social and governance factors into account when making investment decisions on your behalf. And we now have a tool which allows us to measure that. So the Common Goods portfolio gets an ESG risk score of 20.78, which on its own perhaps doesn't mean a huge amount to you, but we have included there the FTSE All World as a comparator. So the FTSE All World is just all the companies of the world thrown in together by way of an average. So when it comes to ESG risk scores, the lower the better, and the Common Goods score does compare favourably on that basis. The overall risk is medium. You are actually on the cusp of becoming low risk. If we look down the page, you can see that the majority of the assets sit in the medium and low risk buckets, with some exposure to negligible, some exposure to high, and you will see that there is a proportion which is not covered. So not everything in the portfolio gets an ESG risk score. So cash, gold, government bonds, they don't get ESG risk scores. So that's why that figure is not 100%. To bring that into a bit more detail, you can see the individual holdings which contribute least and most to the overall ESG risk. So your negligible risk comes from RELX and Tritax. And on the right-hand side, your two higher ESG risk companies, perhaps not too surprising to see the extractive industries there. So Shell and mining company Rio Tinto. We are also able to measure the carbon intensity of the investments. So on the lower left of the page here, you can see what we're measuring here is the tons of carbon dioxide emitted per $1 million of revenue. So the portfolio emits 132.98 tons, which again compares favourably with the All World Index, 207.43. So these are relatively new tools for us, but hopefully it's something which is of interest and gives you some comfort that we are taking these factors into consideration on your behalf. So in terms of markets, it's been a busy few weeks, to say the least. Inflation is now at much more palatable levels from a central banker's point of view. So we are pretty close to the 2% target levels in the major economies now. We did get down to 1.7 in the UK, we're now up to 2.3, but central bankers will be less interested in inflation now and looking more closely at economic growth. So we have seen some action from central bankers. We've seen interest rates coming down in the US, the UK and Europe. Just in the last couple of weeks, we did get another quarter point cut from the Bank of England. And we expect interest rates to continue coming down as we get into 2025. The expectations for UK rates coming down has changed a bit since the budget. We now expect interest rates actually to be around 4% at the end of next year, rather than 3.7% when I prepared the pack. And just moving on again, economic growth has generally been pretty good. So what we've got here is consensus forecasts for 2024, which is the orange bar, 2025, the blue bar, and then the grey bar, 2026. So you can see that growth is projected in the world's major economies. However, these figures are pre-US election and pre-UK budget. We do expect that the growth figures for the US will be revised upwards as a result of a second Trump presidency. And we do expect that the economic growth figures for the UK will be revised downwards. In particular, the national insurance contributions, essentially making it more expensive to employ people. That will be bad for wage growth. That will be bad for jobs and creation. And it will also be potentially inflationary. And none of those three things are positive. So we do expect the economic growth figures for the UK will be revised down. Remains to be seen whether or not how close we will get to flirting with recession in the years ahead. So in terms of the US, as I said, on balance, a Trump presidency has been taken to be positive by investment markets. The Trump thing is a big beast. There's an awful lot of layers to unwrap. Tariffs are generally not good for economic. Inflationary. He's talked about bringing down taxes, which would be good for the economy there, but that obviously has an impact on the fiscal position in the US. So there are lots of different factors to take into consideration, but the initial market reaction to Trump's presidency was positive. All I would say on politics is that things like Federal Reserve policy, economic growth, and corporate profitability are more important than who happens to be in the White House. So this chart here looks at the main index in America, the S&P 500, going back to 1933. Where we've had a Democrat in the White House, the area is shaded blue, and where it's a Republican, it's shaded red. And you can see that we have had good returns, really, to some extent, regardless of who happens to be in the White House. So there's a lot of noise around Donald Trump. He is a very noisy man. But we as investors have to look through that noise and be quite dispassionate in the way that we look at things. And we will, of course, tilt the portfolio to try and take advantage of anything which comes our way. Clearly, risks remain. The protectionism within the US, tariffs, is not necessarily positive. And indeed, the history of tariffs is generally quite negative, and we have the potential for more erratic foreign policy in America. Russia, Ukraine has been in the news the last couple of days. That situation is obviously ongoing, as is the Middle East, and there are tensions, of course, in between China and Taiwan. So it's not a bed of roses just now, and certainly there are various things that we need to bear in mind. Just taking everything into consideration, recessionary risks have increased, particularly here in the UK, but our base case is that the economies of the world continue to grow. There had been one or two slightly concerning signs within the US jobs market, but they are still consistent with economic growth. We've got synchronized rate cutting from the major central banks around the world, which presents us with quite a supportive backdrop. I touched on the risks there. Within the portfolio, we're still very happy to have an overweight within equities. The US remains very much our favoured region for investing. That's where the majority of your assets are positioned. We've had a very good run over the course of the last year or in the last few weeks, but taking everything into account, I still think we are reasonably constructive on the prospects as we move towards 2025. So I will stop sharing my screen there. And very happy to take any questions which any of you may have.
Members have now had the opportunity to talk through this and ask any questions or make any comments. For David. Well, David, can I thank you? Lindsay Forbes. Yes, sorry. Lindsay Forbes.
On a technical issue, we've received, or the Dumfries and Galloway Council have received from you the annual schedule showing the valuation of the investments at 31st March 2024. But there does not seem to be any information in regards to gains or losses made on share transactions during the year. Can you comment on that?
So I don't have the report you're looking at in front of me at the moment. I know that we do send out all that information. I would have to check who it gets sent to, but certainly from the year-end reporting point of view, we have to send out all of that information. So it should have gone out.
Thank you. Ingrid?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. If there's anything missing, I will certainly check with colleagues in finance to make sure that everything that should be sent has been sent to members, and I'll make sure that that's done this afternoon. Thanks very much.
If you need anything, Ingrid, just give us a shout. We can, by all means, send it on again or send it. Yeah, just let us know what you need.
That's appreciated, David. Thank you.
I'm sure that this would have been sent, but we will double check that. Are there any other questions or comments? No, David, thank you for your time and your report. And it was very interesting and informative. Thank you.
Interesting times. Thank you very much indeed.
We'll now move to recommendations. Members are asked to, 1, agree the financial objective of the financial plan being to maintain the financial health of the fund and maximise and manage the level of fee income available for distribution by the Common Good Subcommittee, as detailed at 4.8. 2, agree the financial plan for 2024-25 as set out in Appendix 1. And 3, note the financial outturn for 2023-24 in Appendix 1 and the balance sheet in Appendix 2. And 4, note that a representative from Brewin Dolphin will be present to answer questions on the investment and interest income for 2023-24 as detailed in Appendix 3. Are members happy to agree the recommendations?
Yep. Yes. Agreed.
Thank you. Agreed. Lindsay Forbes.
Before you move on, ladies and gentlemen, you've got in front of you pages 15 and 17, and I have the following professional comments to make. First of all, the balance sheet doesn't balance. I appreciate that it's only out by 2 pence, but if you are inclined to show accounts involving sums of £1 million down to the penny, you might at least ensure that the balance sheet balances. Brewin Dolphin, secondly, have given a valuation, apparently at 31st March, of 918,429.72 pence, yet the valuation shown on the balance sheet is 918,100 £120. The two figures don't agree. Secondly, the estimated income, or thirdly, the estimated income is £22,641.52, yet these accounts show that we have only received £11,382.14, a big difference. Why? At 31st March, our Brewin Dolphin holding cash reserves. I note that they should be holding about £13,000 or £14,000. These are cash sums that are available for distribution. On page 17, the total for fixed assets, land and buildings brought forward from the previous year is £583,222. At 31st March 2024, this is shown at £754,306.72, with absolutely, as far as I can see, no explanation as to how these figures have been arrived at. Where in the accounts are shown the fees and commission paid to Brewin Dolphin as acting as agents for the Common Good Fund for the year? Where are gains and losses shown on capital gain on assets bought and sold? Loan fund interest is shown as £776 and a penny, and there is some, if I'm correct, £18,932 held by Dumfries and Galloway Council. This is surely cash funds that can be used to disburse in respect of grants. And finally, although I'm sure I can find other things, I cannot understand how you have arrived at the figures on page 17 of usable reserves and unusable reserves. I don't reconcile them to anything above. Those are the end of my written comments.
You can turn your microphone off now, Lindsay. Thank you for raising those points. I think there was a lot of questions there, a lot of comments, which will need some investigation. Ingrid has taken a note of those. Councillor Campbell, would you like to make a comment?
Yes, thanks, Convener. I wonder if you could ask Mr. Forbes if the information that he has just read out has been considered and agreed by Kirkcudbright Community Council. I'm just thinking here in terms of procedure and process, that it's important to clarify that. Is this communication that Lindsay is giving to us just now and has been noted by Ingrid, the view of the Community Council, or is it his personal view?
Councillor Campbell, thank you for that question. I'll present that to Lindsay Forbes.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. First of all, the new Community Council met for the first time last week at 7 o'clock, and I indicated that I couldn't stay beyond 7:20. I have checked with the new provost as to what happened after I left, and I have been instructed to make my comments to the Common Good Fund Committee today in respect of what I professionally consider to be questionable in the schedules produced for your consideration this afternoon. So it is a mixture, Mr. Campbell, of both. I'm wearing a hat as a representative of the Community Council, but I cannot let my own professional not sure how to put it, be expressed as well.
Lindsay, the professional observations and comments, it would be helpful if those could have been sent to Ingrid in advance of today. Obviously, there's a lot of detail there, and Councillor Campbell wants to make a further comment.
Yeah, please, and I'm grateful for that clarification. That was helpful. I'm a bit unsure about the role of Community Council representation on the Common Good Subcommittee, and perhaps Ingrid could clarify that. Is it to critique accounts, or is representation on the subcommittee purely in relation to applications to the Common Good Fund or disposal of assets?
Councillor Campbell, thank you for your question. I think that is a key question. Ingrid, are you able to give some clarification?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So it's my understanding that community representatives are here to do just that, to bring the views of the community. It's not necessarily a community councillor who can be a community representative. It could be somebody from the community in general. But they do sign up to the same codes as elected members do in terms of practice and conduct. You know, they do have the right to bring the views of the community, as I say, so that members can then take that into consideration when they're making decisions. I hope that's helpful.
Could I just drill down a bit there, Ingrid? Is that in relation to the sort of scrutiny of the accounts that we've just heard from Lindsay, or is it only in relation to applications for decisions on grants and the disposal of assets?
Please, Ingrid.
Yeah, thanks again, Chair, and thanks for the question, Councillor Campbell. Again, it's my understanding that it is to help and support, bring the views of communities to the business of the common good.
Okay, thanks for that clarification, Ingrid.
Ingrid.
Thank you, Chair. So just further to the comments that we've received from our community representatives this afternoon, I will take those away to colleagues to get some answers to what's been raised. I do think it's fair to point out and useful for members to know that in terms of the way that chartered accountants and local government accounts are dealt with are slightly different. I think that we have had finance colleagues explain that in the past, and I'm happy to pick up that conversation again with colleagues so that we can bring clarity and try and bring some resolution to the issues that come up around the financial information that's been presented to this committee.
Thank you, Ingrid, for clarifying that, and we'd appreciate it if you could follow up with the finance colleagues. Lindsay Forbes.
Thank you. I'm more than happy to sit down with Ingrid to clarify, for the sake of minutes, what I read out to the meeting, so that she gets the figures and my concerns properly noted.
That okay? Thank you, Lindsay. Ingrid.
Thanks for that offer, Lindsay. Would it be possible to get those in writing, please, just so that I can pass them on to colleagues? Thank you.
Okay, so we'll now move on to item 5, applications for financial assistance from Kirkcudbright Common Good Fund, report by Head of Thriving Communities. Our second and final report today is in relation to an application for financial assistance from Kirkcudbright Parish Church, which was deferred at the meeting of this committee on the 18th of September 2024. Kirkcudbright Parish Church are seeking funding from Kirkcudbright Common Good Fund Subcommittee towards the replacement of the existing bell striking mechanism with a new digital system. Details of the application are contained within the report and Appendix 2. Ward Manager Ingrid Gemmell is present to answer any questions. Members and community representatives, do you have any comments or questions? Ingrid.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just so that members are aware, I have spoke to the organisation who have submitted this application, and they are aware that in terms of the available budget that we have at the moment, the £5,589 is less than what they have applied for, but they have confirmed that they would be able to meet the delivery of the project if they were awarded that amount, recognising that it is shorter, but they could work to bring in the rest of the money. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you for that update, Ingrid, and that is noted. Councillor McFarlane.
Almost gave me cause not to ask a question, but just really to ask of Mr Forbes if the Community Council have actually had the opportunity, because we delayed this last time because they weren't able to make comment on it, so just to get an update from them before we make a decision.
Okay, Lindsay Forbes.
Thank you. I've already indicated that I wasn't present throughout the whole of the meeting that was held last week, but I have phoned the new provost, Mrs Garbutt, to ask what the council's, or the community council's views or instructions are to me to represent to you this afternoon. And I'm told that I have to advise you that the position of the Community Council has not changed in respect of this application until they are satisfied as to the accounting of the Common Good Fund and being able to discuss it, as I understand, I may have misinterpreted what she said, the presence of members of this committee meeting with us. Ingrid Gemmell can perhaps confirm that, because I'm sorry to put the burden on you, Ingrid, but you were present throughout the meeting, I understand, and heard the conversation. I didn't hear it all. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to clarify, the request has been made and the Community Council have discussed this. This has already been deferred. You now are talking about the decision being the same. Can you clarify what you mean by that? Are you saying that there needs to be a meeting with the church committee prior to you having come today? Because I'm just very conscious that this grant application has been deferred from the 18th of September. The church is waiting, obviously, for an outcome and a response. Ingrid, could you add any further clarification?
Thank you, Chair. Unfortunately, I left the meeting before any other business was discussed post the the agenda items that I was there for, so wasn't aware of any further conversation, I'm afraid. What I would say today is that in front of us, in terms of the financial plan, we do have a clear figure there in terms of what is left in the budget for 24-25, and I would hope that that would be enough information for members to feel comfortable to make a decision on today. Appreciating that there is some further questions that need to be asked, but I am mindful that this organisation has been waiting a considerable amount of time for this application to be considered. So just want to make sure that members are aware that that figure that is presented today in terms of what is available for the 24-25 budget has been checked, and that is what is there. Thanks.
Thank you, Ingrid. Thank you for clarifying that point. I agree. That is the position. Councillor McFarlane.
Yeah, thank you. Another question for Ms Forbes, really. Lindsay, I know you said you left the meeting and you've spoken to the Provost. Is the Provost saying that the matter was discussed at the meeting and that as a consequence of that, the decision of the Community Council was that they would not be willing to support this on the basis of the issues that you've raised in relation to the accounts? Is that correct?
Lindsay?
Yes, I think that is in the main correct. Yeah, yes.
Just to be clear then, the Community Council had a discussion and their decision on the record and in their minute. But do we know what the minute is in their meeting?
No, I don't.
Yeah,
Councillor
thank you,
McFarlane.
Chair. Thank you, Chair. I did, while we've been having this conversation, check online to see if the minutes had been uploaded yet. But because of the recent re-election of all community councillors, there is no data available. So we can't at this point check that that has been recorded. Thanks.
Chairman, I only received these papers last week, and we haven't, in fact, had a chance to look at the papers as a community council. So the only person who's looked at these in detail are myself.
We've had previous discussion. Sorry, Ingrid, I'll let you.
Yeah, so just to be clear, I appreciate what Lindsay's saying about receiving the reports for this meeting, but the information regarding the application is sent to the Secretary and should have been shared with the Community Council. Even before this meeting, it should have been shared in advance of the meeting on the 18th of September. So I'm sure that information, in terms of the application, will have been shared with the Community Council before the receipt of the application. Thanks.
Okay, I think we will we'll invite Councillor Campbell. Did you have a comment or question?
I don't think I've got any questions. I just find the whole situation extraordinary. But I'm happy to proceed and make a decision on the application.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. We will now move to recommendations. First, note that the remaining fee income balance of £5,589 is available for disbursement in 24-25 financial year. 2, noted the agreed grant criteria for funding as detailed at Appendix 1. And 3, consider and agree whether to agree an award to the applicant as detailed in paragraph 4.13 and Appendix 2. Are members happy to agree the recommendations? Ingrid?
Just to be clear, and for the sake of the minute in particular, are members saying that they are in agreement of making the award of the remaining budget of £5,589 to Kirkcudbright Parish Church?
Councillor McFarlane?
Yeah, I would support Councillor Campbell. I think the information has been available, and taking into consideration Mr Forbes' comments in relation to the accounts, it's for us as a common good subcommittee to make a decision to actually spend this money for the benefit of the community, and I feel that it would be detrimental to the group who've applied if we were to stave this off for another meeting. Thanks.
Are we clear on that point? Sorry, Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, just to support what Councillor McFarlane has just said.
Thank you both for that support. Ingrid, are you happy to make that note and the agreement? Thank you. Item 6, any other business deemed urgent by the chairman due to the need for a decision? I have no urgent business, so that concludes the meeting. Could I thank everybody for your contributions? Thank you, Ingrid.